If you're an event pro that is busy, but you often feel as if you're still broke, this episode is exactly what you need to listen to. Because here's the truth, most event businesses are finding themselves having challenges around their pricing. What to charge, if it's too low, if it's too high, and just not having true clarity on what it takes to have a profitable business. You're out here setting pricing just because you think it's going to make clients happy, but you're not pricing for a business that is actually going to be sustainable long term. You're charging based on emotions instead of actual business operation costs, profit margins, and your capacity. And that stops today for you. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about how event pros just like you can price your services so that you have a sustainable business that actually brings you not only joy on the creative side, but the profits inside of your bank account. In today's episode, I have the amazing opportunity to actually interview Care Allen, and we're going to have an amazing conversation today. So I want you to pull out your pen, paper. You're going to need to take some notes and learn some really valuable information from our conversation today. She's been able to have the success of building 2 businesses in the event industry by mastering some of the tips that she's going to be sharing with you today. Because all business owners hit a point where you just draw a line in the sand where you're like, I have to charge so that I'm not burning out inside of my business because it's not priced accordingly. And if you're new to the podcast, don't forget to subscribe, and we're going to dig into this conversation today. So thank you so very much for being a guest today, Care.
Problem. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. So I really was so impressed when I saw your TikTok about having to get to this crossroads in your event business when it came to pricing. So I immediately was like, "Hey, would you be interested in being a guest on our podcast?" And I was so happy when you said yes. So I want to just publicly say thank you for being open to being a guest today.
Absolutely. I'm actually honored. I love talking about this. So when you sent it, I was like, please, I have things to say.
Yes, we have to talk about pricing. I feel like that's that Achilles heel that sometimes we're either present to or we're not present to. But before we jump into it, I would love for you to share like what actually got you into the event industry.
So I love to tell people it kind of fell in my lap a little
Mhm.
bit, but I've been doing events my whole life, literally from my mother. So my mother, I had a birthday party every year. We celebrate real big in my family. And what happened was, as I got older, I started to throw my own parties. And people would kind of hint at, Kara, this is so amazing. Like just the decor itself of
Mhm.
like, or the themes. I always have a theme. And people would say, Kara, like, I've never been to a party like this, or Kara, you should do this for other people. And I will always say, no, this is just for me. This is my thing. And then my mom died. If I'm
Mhm.
like, I'm just going to throw that out there. My mom
Yeah.
died. And I grieved and I
Mm.
grieved and I grieved. So she died in 2021. And at that time, I've always been a business owner, like pretty much my whole adult life. So at that time, I was a shoe designer. So I owned a shoe
Mm.
store. But as
Okay.
you know, we were post COVID at that
Yeah.
time. Well, just slightly post COVID, really. In the middle of 20, she died in June of 2021. And my shoe store was doing very, very well. I was in stores in New York as well as stores in LA, but I'm based in Michigan. So I was like, oh, this is great. But
Yeah.
then I started to feel the impact of later, like the things that were happening after post COVID. And I was like,
Yes.
I don't know how sustainable this business is really going to be. And
Mhm.
what had happened was I had just signed a lease for a warehouse space for
Okay.
my shoe store. So I was thinking I was going to do all like put these shoes in a warehouse, do all these things. And then I decided to actually close my shoe store instead. But my husband at the time, he's like, well, babe, you're so creative. Like, he's like, why don't we just try like renting this space out? Because this space is viable to be like a space for people to be in. And he's like, why don't
Yeah.
we just start renting the space out? So we threw ourselves an anniversary party that year. That was our 5-year wedding anniversary. We threw ourselves a wedding anniversary party. We honored my mom and all of that. And I decorated it. And before I knew it, by the end of that, we had announced like, this is going to be our venue and we're going to, do some light decor and all that.
Yeah.
And before I knew it, I was able to quit my job. Well, actually, I had quit my job that same year. Like, I was able to quit my job
Wow.
and do this full time. And so I think a lot of the creativity and things around it, my mom was a teacher for 38
Mm.
years, but she was so creative. Like, she could take any, like, I can't even touch the hem of creativity that she had, but I think
Yeah.
it was what she left me. The gift of
Yeah.
creativity was what she left me, and
Yeah.
it brought itself to fruition in this decor business.
I love that you share that, and I'm sorry about your mom. Like, certain parts about your story is very similar. My mom passed away in 2018. And the thing about it that I also think is very common in your story is that I feel that you have some people that get into events because, I don't know, like they decided to go to school for it, or they might have been interior designers, which is still for some people schooling. But I find that a good amount of people get into events because of the creativity, the love of it, or like I was planning my wedding and I fell in love with it. What I find is really interesting about your story is that you shared the fact that you kind of fell into this journey, which I find is extremely common when it comes to those of us in the event industry. It's because, oh, I was planning my wedding and I loved it so much. And I was doing, floral designs and people like, oh, you should start selling it. Or I was cooking and people's like, like I feel like it's one of those industries that you don't necessarily go to school for, but this is what you are creative your creativity pushes you in that direction. Have you found when you've met other people, like in the industry yourself, has that been something you've noticed as well? Or are you finding that some people had a more strategic way of getting into the industry?
So most commonly, though, the people that I find that have gotten into this industry as like a true career move, or like this was always a part of their journey, they typically kind of like what you mentioned. They were like either in the interior design space at some point, or
Mhm.
they went to some kind of creative school, like a Kendall College or
Yeah.
something of the arts. But most, I would say 90% of like my designer friends, my event friends, we fell in love with this somehow. Or a lot of people, they came from, they were a bartender, or they did sound at church, or like literally
Yeah.
they found a love for it in sharing their time and their talent at one point, and then
Yeah.
they realized, oh, this is kind of a gifting for me, and
Yeah.
people are willing to pay me for it, and then they kind of got into it that way. But I only know a handful of people who got into this through a formal training or formal
Yeah.
education. Yeah.
I wholeheartedly agree. But so when I hear that and it just connected, that might be why we're having the conversation that we're having right now, is because it started out of a love and a talent more or less than a training or explanation inside of
Mhm.
how do we actually run the business that we're running. So that's where there can be this confusion around pricing. Would you think that might be why that is aligned that way?
Absolutely. I would think because the business training piece is missing, and the people
Mhm.
start a business and they're doing the skill set or the talent, but they're not doing the work of business, which is
Yeah.
they're two different lanes, right? Working on a business versus working in a business, right?
Yes. 1,000%. And so, like, for you, what got you to the point of actually being present to the fact that there may be something wrong with my pricing?
So I actually went through a incubator because I
Mm,
remember I'd always kind of been a business owner, like
yes.
struggled in corporate America in terms of like following rules, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
I wanted to dress how I wanted to dress, not like in a bad way, but I was
Yeah.
just like, "Oh my god, this is so stiff. Nobody laughs here. Like nobody has
Yeah.
any fun." It's kind of how I felt. But back to your question, I've always had this entrepreneurial spirit. So I actually joined an accelerator or incubator program. That's what led me to start my shoe store, which is what I would say was my first successful business. So I had all of the foundational principles of
Mhm.
running a business from running that shoe store. But
Yeah.
what I realized with the decor piece was I had no idea how to price, because everything in the type of industry that I'm in, right? I do weddings, I do luxury events, everything is so customized. So
Mhm.
it's really hard to just say centerpieces are $30
Yeah.
because every centerpiece is different. The
Yeah.
color might be different. Oaks versus real florals, right? Faux florals, or using crystal versus
Yeah.
using some type of gem or plastic. Like so many factors play into it. And when I realized, for me, it didn't take long. When
Mhm.
I realized, "Oh, you're not even breaking even," I said,
Yeah.
"Absolutely not." I said this was gonna be a business, so this is gonna be a business, and I shifted immediately. But part of that, I think if I hadn't have had my shoe store before that, I would not have recognized the
Mhm.
finances, breaking even, making a profit, right? All of those things,
Mhm.
or even how to talk to my customers in the right way. So I would say my training in one business led
Yeah.
to this business being able to excel and succeed so much more quickly than my
Mhm.
shoe store did.
And that's a real like, I feel like that's super relatable, and I think that that's something important for those that are listening to, like, as you're taking notes and listening to this conversation, is that sometimes our past experiences are really helping those of us with actually going forward, and I think that having experience, especially since the pandemic, I feel like so many people just wanna jump out there and recognize that sometimes the things that we did in our past or where we are now, if we learn in those seasons, it truly can help us in our future chapters. And it's the pricing part is something that, especially in our industry, depending on how much revenue is coming in, because I'm like revenue and profit, actually revenue and net profit, because some people only know about the gross profit component, the
Mhm.
revenue. And to be very honest, like for me on TikTok, I don't even like talking about money for that simple because I'm like, oh, I already know that a majority won't get the differences between these numbers.
Yes.
And so within our industry, if you have, it feels like if you're busy or you're like having momentum, and momentum is relative, busy is relative to an individual, revenue is relative to an individual, but you have this flux that's coming in, it can give the perception that you have a healthy business until you realize I don't have a healthy business. And it's usually, I find something that makes you go, wow, okay, something's wrong here. Did you have like that wow moment that was like, okay, something gotta go, something has to happen for me to make a
Mhm.
change?
Yeah, so for me, for one, I was exhausted. Like, I would
Yes.
when I realized I was so busy,
Mm.
and I said, "How are you this busy and you're not making money?" Like, the business, there's money coming into the business, but it's
Mhm.
going right back out. What is happening, right? So I'm investing in inventory, and, that's
Yeah.
common when you start. You're gonna invest in some things. Your
Mm.
margins are gonna be a little bit smaller, but
Yeah.
you should be making a profit at some point. And
Yeah.
I was like, I am barely breaking even. I am exhausted. And my work was starting to I felt like the quality of my work was starting to change. And I was like,
Mhm.
I'm going from giving it everything and executing to okay, I'm just going to get a white floral ball. And that's
Yeah.
not creative to me, right?
Yeah.
For the kind of business that I was doing, I was like, this is not what you promised people. And not that I was doing that a lot, but I was getting to the point where that was my mindset of like, you know what, we're just gonna do white floral balls. And I was like, that's
Yeah.
so boring, right? And I was like, also, well, that's all you have in your inventory is white floral balls. So I'm buying all this other stuff, but I wasn't charging people for the fact that this is a new investment, right? Or this is a
Mhm.
color I don't have. So this rental rate is a little bit higher because we're investing in a color, things like that. So
Mhm.
it was a big aha moment for me. I would say I was about 3 or 4 months into business and I had a weekend of like 4 events. At this time, it was just me and anybody I could find, I would say, hey, I'll pay you to come out and do it. And then my
Yeah.
husband was even like, he worked a full time job. And my husband's like, we got to do what? And I was like, yeah, we got an event in the morning and then we got to break that one down. And then we got an event in the afternoon. And then we got to flip over and go pick up a truck. So in the morning we can go do this other. And he was like, this is out of control. And then I
Yeah.
sat down because my husband is such a cool, calm guy. And
Mm.
for him to kind of go, what's happening? We're doing all of the what? So I had
Yeah.
to sit down and I said, I had to look at my process. It made me reflect on process
Mhm.
because I was like, okay, if my husband's overwhelmed, I'm doing too much. And then I was looking at the numbers of like, well, is this making sense? If I have this many events in a weekend, the bank account should be overflowing, right?
Yeah.
Because if I'm too busy, am I charging the right amount? And so I
Mhm.
really sat down and I just did a break even of like,
Yeah.
what did I charge? And at what point did I break even with this event? I brought people in, I had to do this, and then I saw that I was in the red for pretty much all the events, or I was just at the cusp of breaking even. And then I
Mhm.
wasn't even paying myself what I said I was going to pay myself. And I said, that's
Mm.
a big no no for me. As a
Yeah.
business owner, my first priority is paying myself. And I know a
Yeah.
lot of people, that's their last priority of like, well, I got to get the business up and running first. For me, my
Mm.
experience, a
Yeah.
business proves to me its sustainability when it can employ people. And when I say
Yes.
employed, that could be contracted. It doesn't mean W-2 per se. But when
Yeah.
it can pay somebody for the time and the gift, that's when
Yeah.
it's a business to me. And my business at that time wasn't doing that. And I said, oh, so this is still a hobby. So I
Yes.
that's when I just decided, I said, well, I was talking to my business coach too. And one of the things she said, she's like, well, first of all, where's your design fee? And I said, oh my God. I should be charging
Mhm.
people to design? She's like, yeah, where are they getting
Yeah.
the ideas from? I said, out of my head. I do the mock up. She said, you charge for that. Then I was like, oh, a service fee. She's like, you're a service based business. So not only that, I was like, okay, that's another reason I'm not being paid because I'm only charging people for the rentals of the items. I'm not
Mhm.
charging people for the service, the delivery of it, the taking, breaking, sending it up, breaking it down, those kinds of things. So I just
Yeah.
read my numbers. And the moment I implemented my design fee, separated out that travel cost, and I
Yeah.
created a service fee.
Mhm.
Everything, the whole entire game changed,
And I love
and I was
that
profitable.
I love that realization because the thing is that even with getting employees, because in transparency, like this weekend, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, when I first started my event business, I was like, okay, I want to be in 10 different I wanted to build a national brand that because what I
Hmm.
do is very simple. I was like, okay, we can rinse and repeat this. I'm like, do I do franchise? Do I not? And I think I was so committed to that, but then the thing is that everybody that you add into it is an additional cost. And
Hmm.
that is the biggest part with hiring because I have been, people that work, but again, with duplication, you can be bringing in more revenue, but you have to have enough volume to justify that other person because sometimes I feel that and that's why I feel like the hiring part can be a little bit challenging for people is one, being realistic. How much would it actually cost for me to get someone that's going to be full time or part time to support me?
Hmm.
And so even if my company for even numbers brings in 10,000, I'm just giving even numbers, 10,000, but if 3,000 is going to be going to someone else, the thing about it is that if your operating costs are still 5,000, you're not you're making less money. So I feel like what hit me this weekend is like I wonder if with event businesses, are they set up in the way that they can be quote unquote really like sellable? Or if it's something you can build to a certain extent where, it's profitable and you can come in and come out when you choose, but is this a sellable business because of some of the limitations around how much pricing and, like, I don't know if that's too deep of a conversation, but like, have you thought about like, as you're growing, like some people want to get another venue. Okay, if I get this other venue, now I have to have team members that work it. Like, what helps you with knowing when to add more into your pricing or when it's time for you to go to the next level inside of your business?
So for me, so I have two. So that's the other thing. My businesses are separate. Our rental venue is its
Mhm.
own business.
Okay.
So they're run very similarly, but then
Mhm.
and then I have the decor business, which is where we do decor. We do decor at our venue and other places.
Okay,
So for the
perfect.
overarching thought that comes to mind for me, staff is a line item. So for every
Mhm.
invoice, so we charge a service fee.
Yeah.
So the service fee for me, my minimum service fee is 25% on every contract.
Mhm.
Also, I have minimums that people have to meet in order for us to even come out and do an event. Right. So that staff fee, that
Yeah.
service fee is all labor cost. That's just what that is. That's labor cost. So
Yeah.
the profit for me, I make sure that my rental items or my sell items are priced at a point where the profit margin is what it's going to be every single time. Hence,
Okay.
every once in a while, right, you might run a Black Friday sale or you might run a holiday deal or some kind of special, right, where your margin might
Uh-huh.
adjust a little bit. But the rental or the sale price already has the margin in it. So the
Mhm.
service fee is completely separate. And that
Mhm.
service fee is going to be higher, right? Even though it's 25%,
Yeah.
25% of $1,000 is different from 25% of $10,000, right? Because a
Yes.
10,000 invoice, ideally, I'm probably going to need a couple more people than I would on a $1,000 invoice
Yeah.
and I mean, I don't even have events that are $1,000. Our minimum is $1,500. And that's on a standard, like that's no theme. Only get to choose a color and it's between these 10 colors that we have in stock.
Love it.
But all of our customized packages, right, are $2,500 and above. Our weddings are, you can only get one event, wedding or ceremony. That package starts at 5 grand. Then we
Mhm.
have corporate things, all of that goes up. So our fee percentage is based on me accommodating the size of the event. And then there are additional costs in my industry, which is very normal for those of you that are in the luxury event space industry. It is very normal that 25% service fee could be your standard fee, but then you could have an overage if the event accounts for a certain amount of people or more, right? So like I
Yes.
have an upcoming event that's this they're gonna seat 1,000 people. That's their
Mhm.
seating. So it's 100 tables. So even though there's a 25% service fee, there's also we have an additional labor fee
Oh,
for preparation because even though I don't have to physically take more people to the event, I
yeah.
have to have more hands or more hours on deck
Hours,
for
yeah.
and that's put right into their contract and they have to sign off on that. And I explained that in our consultation of like, hey, because this is a 100 table event, right? This is
Mhm.
going to require an additional so many hours of preparation. And
Yeah.
there will be an additional prep fee, just labor costs. There's nothing else but labor costs. And they
Mhm.
sign on to that. But
Um,
that's the other thing, you have to plan. And that's
yes.
one of the issues that I believe a lot of our people in my industry, they don't plan ahead enough to
Mhm.
see that or to dissect numbers. They get a call and they say yes, where you
Yes.
really should get a call and you should say, I'm going to have you fill out this form. And then you get their details and then you run all your numbers. What is this going to cost me? How much time might this take? Or
Mm.
what pieces can I outsource, right? Because I'm a big
Yes.
person. There are other businesses that I can pull in for certain things like if I'm doing 1,000 people, like 100 tables, who can do the draping instead of my folks, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
making sure you're gathering those quotes from other companies,
Yeah.
and then you do a compounded proposal to the client.
And I like the fact that you said about the hours, because that's the part that I think is really missing. Because even one time I was working with someone that does South Asian weddings and they do the videography and the photography. So they were charging, a five-figure price tag. Sounds amazing.
Yeah,
But if you know anything about South Asian weddings, like those are 5, 7 days long.
yeah,
And it's traveling depending on the company. And then the way their packages were set up, it was like a lot of edits and all that stuff. I felt like it was stuffing because I'm like, you're charging this amount and you're like, oh wow, I just got paid $10,000. I'm just like, but the amount of hours, I'm like, not even just the days of the wedding that you're there, your team is there. We're talking about the prep, the conversations that are happening, and then all the post, and
the
that's no
post work.
different even for planners and on the event side, not the vendor side. Is I
Mhm.
feel that scope creep is one of the biggest things that hurts us is by not having understanding of how much time it takes us to do certain things so that when we're billing, which I'm glad you said that, is that if it's going to take you, I can only imagine the amount of hours it's going to take you to do 100 tables. So if you're like, "Oh, it's only gonna take me 1 to 2 hours," but it's gonna literally take you a lot longer than that, and what will happen is then you'll kind of feel, and I feel like sometimes that happens, is that people almost become disgruntled in their work because they're like, "I spent all day here and I only walked away," because in that only word comes in. "I only
Yes.
made this amount of money," but it's like, but why didn't you take the time to actually look at what the person was really needing so that you quote it correctly?
Yes. Yes. That's the biggest piece. And I'm a big advocate for conversation. So I know
Mhm.
some designers who are like, no, if they fill out my form and it doesn't look like something I want to do, I just let it go. Or, I
Yes.
tell them I can't do it. I'm the kind of person like, yeah, I mean, if their budget is way lower than what you were expecting, or, they just have no idea, sure, in some cases. But one of the things that I realized in the last year and a half, what I started to be really intentional about was I do send out my form to people. That is the first step. But I really read and I see what people say. And people will put a lot of things and then their budget will be lower. And I'll have my assistant call them and I'll say, hey, Kara wants to set up a consultation. But she had a couple of questions that triggered her a little bit on
Mhm,
wanting to make sure there were some pieces you understood. And simple questions. Sometimes I just want to know, have you ever planned a wedding before? Like, have you ever
mhm,
been on the planning side of a wedding? Because sometimes people will say their budget is $5,000, for example, but they
yeah,
want real florals
yes,
for their wedding and they want real florals for their reception. Remind you, this guest count is maybe around 175 to 200
yeah,
people, right? So they got 15, 20
yeah,
tables. They want real florals, but their entire budget is $5,000. That question alone,
mhm.
have you ever planned a wedding before? Have you ever received a quote for real florals versus silk florals? And they'll say, no, I actually have no idea. Then my assistant will say to them, well, Care wants to let you know that your budget, your $5,000 budget for your entire ceremony is actually, if you go with real florals, you're going to exceed that budget just off rip. If you're
Yeah.
willing to negotiate that, maybe go with some real, some silk, or, she'll give some
Mhm.
recommendations. We can set you up for a consult.
Yes.
I have rarely had anybody who was like, "Oh, never mind." I have had something, a handful of folks who were like, "Actually, $5,000 is just my budget, and I guess I'm gonna have to DIY it because I really didn't know that." But there's the thing,
Mhm.
me and my team still gave them insight into something they just didn't know. They weren't trying to lowball.
Yeah.
They literally had no idea. And sometimes people, just ignore folks. And then
Yeah.
I've gotten clients who were like, I just thought $5,000 was a really great number. I've seen people
Yeah.
say that, people I've asked, and then I'll say to them, we'll get on a consult and I'll say, well, actually, they probably went with silk florals or they may have repurposed, right? They may have used
Mhm.
the same florals
Yeah.
from their art and just had them purpose to their tables. And we have a
Yeah.
conversation. And then they'll say,
Yeah.
oh, Care, you're the one. I'm going with you. They up that budget. We work through
Yes.
things. And then we have maybe more than one conversation. But
Yeah.
I think that's also what's missing on the pricing and business side is people will say, well, my
Mm.
price is my price, not recognizing that you still have to introduce things to the industry sometimes.
Yeah.
Most people have one wedding, maybe two or what, you know what I
Yes.
mean? Like, so you just wrote them off
Yeah.
because they thought
Of
$5,000
of
was a good
laziness.
number.
I'm gonna say it. This is gonna be a snippet. It's because y'all being lazy. Y'all are being lazy.
There it
I
is.
don't know how else to say it. You're being lazy. Period.
There
End
it
of
is.
sentence. Full sentence. You
Mhm.
are being lazy. Like when you said this, I was like, oh my goodness. People like, okay. So some of y'all may or may not know. I do honey book setups for people, and I'll tell people, I'm like, because you haven't thought through your automation and your process, you are taking someone's face value as the real value. In
Mhm.
reality, most of the times they're making up stuff on these inquiry forms, or they're telling you what they think they should be telling you,
Right.
not what they
Yes.
know. And if you're
Yes.
not taking time, and I'm going to get off this soapbox because, like, internally,
No,
I'm
stay there.
like, my goodness. Because on the corporate side, I'm like, most of the people, they're lying. Like they're thinking it's only going to cost me this amount. But most of the time people will make a way for what they really want.
Mhm.
And if we
Yep.
don't create a process and a structure that allows for you to screen through people without being lazy, and
Mhm.
I hear all the time, oh, our industry is so competitive. No, it's not, because half of the people are lazy. They're not
That's it.
taking the time to follow up with people. They want an easy button when in reality, events, for those of you that don't know, is the hospitality industry.
My goodness, I'm so glad someone said it. I'm so glad
Like
someone said
when
it.
I first started doing all of this, I used to say hospital. I'm like, I don't think they know they're in the hospitality industry. This is the
Yes,
hospitality industry. And I will
literally, it is.
like, this is what we do. And if you're going to be haphazard when your whole thing is to serve, then the results are going to be proven in your client experience. It's going to be proven in your conversions. It's going to be proven in your referrals. Like, it all matters because sometimes when I see people with their lead forms and they're having these 20 questions, I I'm too busy to be filling out a 20 page, and I had to do a video on this. I'm like, why are y'all doing this? Your person doesn't know all of these things. For those that serve the wedding industry, unless they're professional wedding people, because they've done rinse and repeated this a couple of times, which that's not the
Yes.
average. They don't know what they you think that they should know. And I think that what you said is so valuable. And I am going to digress myself because someone needs to hear this. And I think that often, because I get it, because some people are just like, I'm busy, I don't want to answer. Like they're not serious. So here's what you do. You put a fence on and you're blocking your blessings and you're blocking your
Mhm.
clients and you're blocking the growth in your business because you're looking for a way to prevent engaging with clients. I had some people like, I don't like talking to customers. I'm like, how does that work? This is the
Or hire
hospitality.
somebody that does.
Exactly. But you'll be surprised at the amount of people that I talk to in this industry that don't want to talk to nobody in the
Mhm.
sales process of it. Like in the beginning, you don't want to talk to someone so you can get a client.
that
But you
part.
have to set it up right. You have to think through your processes so that everyone that's curious doesn't get access to you. But there needs to be a process to it. So when you hear me say this, I'm not saying that every person gets full access. If you heard her correctly, people come through a form and then they get a questionnaire goes to them, they fill in some information, then someone calls to talk to them further about their idea. There needs
Mhm.
to be a process that's thought through. But if everything is by someone DMing you, of course you're not going to have the time.
Yeah. Mm-mm. Or they or you're not gonna get folks. One of the things about I'm so glad you said hospitality because I actually got one of my interns, so I have high school interns.
Mhm.
I actually got introduced to her at a hospitality convention here
Yeah.
because as a business owner, like, first of all, they hired me to do the conference. Like, I decorated the conference and then they put me on the panel. And I was
Mm.
like, I'm so glad somebody is recognizing and showing that, like, events are hospitality. We're in hotels, we're literally in venues that are hospitality venues. So
And it
anyway,
doesn't connect at all.
no, it doesn't connect to people that this is a business in the hospitality industry. But
Yes.
my intern, I met her at a hospitality conference. She's a high school
Mm.
student. And she said to me, she said, no one ever said to me, because she's like, I love doing events. She's like, every time my family has something, I'm the one like trying to put it together.
Mhm.
She's like,
Yeah.
nobody ever told me this was career. No
Mhm.
one ever told me that, like, coming to, because this was I live in Grand Rapids and it's a really big
Yeah.
hotel called the Amway here.
Okay.
And so I did the conference was at the Amway Hotel and I decorated. And she goes, no one told me that, like, people like me could do stuff like this at places like this. She had no idea, and she's like, "This is what I dream of doing." And so we
Wow.
connected, and she's been my intern for the last year, and she's
Yeah.
doing a great job, but she's able to see it as a career, but she also recognizes that it's hospitality. So
Mhm.
she's not just learning how to decorate, she's learning process, she's learning how
Mhm.
to talk to people and
Yes.
engage with folks. And then
Yeah.
that's the other thing of, like, if you never talk to people, how do you really gauge vision?
Mhm.
How do you
Yeah.
really, because it's you could have one idea, and if all you do is fill out a form, now my creative brain, I'm interpreting that form how I interpret that form.
Yes.
Compared to if we actually had a conversation and you thought you wrote down blue, but you really meant chartreuse, which
Yeah.
is not blue, and that's such a dramatic example.
No,
But
it's
those kinds of things, like really clarifying for people,
mhm.
hopping on a call, or even it could even be email, whatever, but like
Yes.
not giving people any kind of access to design process, to thinking through
Mhm.
something that has to come from brain power to creative life,
Yeah.
to me is lazy, like you said, and it's a
Yeah.
little bit insane, and I'm terrified of that. For somebody to read something and just tell me, "Yep, I got it," I would be a little scared.
Yeah, but the thing about it is because I think there is this disconnect with it being hospitality. I think that there's this disconnect with really having relational businesses. Like, I feel that
Mhm,
there's a lot of people in our industry that are very transactional. And
mhm.
like, that's where the bulk of the content for this part of my life comes from, is from all the transactional experience I receive as a corporate event planner. I get it's interesting out here. And it's
Mhm,
one of those things that when we're not thinking through, one, how do I ensure that people know like that there's not a breakdown in communication? So, like, even for us right now, we're in holiday party season. One of my clients wanted to have turkey. And so we're like, okay, but it's 100 people. We can do that. And I was like, well, here I recommend for us to just have it already pre-sliced and things like that so that from a execution standpoint it's smoother. And I was like, but we're open to talk about how else you want to do this. And she responded back saying that, I was really envisioning having someone just a carving station with turkeys for 100 people. And so I'm like, that is going to be insane. And then even with the caterer, she's like keeping the turkeys the right temperature.
mhm.
That's a whole process. But the thing is that if I was never inquisitive, I can't then educate because often too, sometimes with our clients, what they're envisioning isn't realistic as far
Yep.
as execution. So if we're not taking the time or learning how to use systems and structure so that you can actually think about what you're doing. and have those relational conversations, that's what gets, like, to me, those referrals, that gets the immediate
Yes.
yeses, that gets you people that are ready to move because you're doing more. Like, more doesn't have to be bigger things. Honestly, it's just being decent at customer service in 2025. I
That's
mean,
it.
the bar is not high. Like
It's call people back.
like,
Answer the phone.
I shouldn't have to request pricing from you 3 times. Like
And especially in the day of our age of texting too, you
yeah,
could even people are so okay with
yeah,
even a text message, but for
mhm,
you to just not communicate with folks, I don't understand
yes,
that. If I ever miss a contact or something, when I tell you I'm so apologetic of, "Oh my goodness, I don't know how this was missed. Thank you
yeah,
for following up. Can we
mhm,
hop on a call? Are you available now?" Right? Or, "Are you
yeah,
available? Can we set something up for this week?" Like, have some urgency too, and not just for I've heard people say that too, "Well, I really only have urgency for clients at this price point versus this price point." And
mm,
I'm like,
that's interesting.
I try to treat all my clients as fair as possible,
Yeah,
but also, have you ever even thought about retainer models, right?
yeah,
Maybe their budget is lower, but they do this event every year, or
mhm,
they do multiple events a year. Have you ever thought about treating them well and offering a retainer opposed
yeah.
to, you know what? They're a nonprofit. They get what they get.
But that's where the it's also where the education and price models matters because when you think past that initial money exchange and actually think about why someone's working with you and the true value of that client. And when I say the true, I'm talking about the average customer spend with you. And if
Yeah.
you do it well, then more people are going to work with you more than once. And so if you
Mhm.
understand, like, okay, I might do someone's wedding, but you know what? Maybe because I think with pricing is pricing well for the first time, but pricing well so that each time you're adding to that value of what someone's spending
Mhm.
with you each time. And I think also understanding like how do you retain people? Like there's so many
Yes.
strategies again because we're not present to the fact that we're in the hospitality industry, then we're not present to pricing strategies, we're not present to retention strategies because like if we're only focusing on the wedding, I always tell this, and it's going to be a free tip for anyone that's listening, is that you may not market come to us to do your anniversary, but I'm definitely going to have some promotional materials going to you 7 to 8 months in to your wedding to say, we just wanted to wish you, we know that a couple of months is going to be your anniversary. And I just want to let you know that we have this anniversary package or whatever the case is, because you don't want it to be that you have a giant hole in your sales funnel. You don't want it to
Yes.
be that people only work with you one time. Because if
Mhm.
that's a easy way outside of just the profit margins is having a sales funnel that has a hole at the bottom. Because then what's going to happen is you're always having to churn instead of
And
having
that's
a
harder.
small hole that a little fall through, but the rest still keep recirculating. It might not be once a month. I mean, like not well, once a month or twice a year, but that you're spending more than once with you and understanding that with pricing structure. So I love that you talked about the retainer model and things like that. So we've said some big words that I understand that some people may not understand. So when we're talking about profit margins, how would you describe that? And how would you describe a healthy one in your own experience?
So in my experience, a profit margin is the amount of money you make compared off of that item or service compared to what you paid for it in a
Hmm.
sense, or how you executed it, right?
Hmm.
For me, and in this the way that my business is set up, our profit margins for new, so we have two kind of ways I look at a profit margin. So newly acquired inventory, it
Okay.
needs some time to be a little more profitable, right? If I'm
Hmm.
buying something new, but I know that I'm gonna use it over time, I'm not gonna charge the customer cost of it
Yeah.
because that's a sell price, right? But
Yes.
I might charge when I'm something is newly acquired, rental rate might be increased a little bit for it, not by much, but a little bit. Or if it's a bulk item where I got a ton of it, right? That profit margin might be a little bit smaller so that I can buy enough of it to use
Yes.
over and over again, right? So certain colors, reds, whites, blues, blacks, pinks, right? Your very
Mhm.
common colors. So for me, I like to stick around a profit margin of anywhere for my newer inventory. I want my profit margin to still be around 50%, which I know sounds crazy,
Okay.
but remember I'm in the luxury industry, right?
Yes.
And then over time, right? My typical profit margin though is somewhere around 70% or more for inventory that I own. If I've owned it, if it's in my inventory, and when I say
Mhm.
70%, because sometimes I'm gonna think like florals and things, like things get worn or whatever,
Yes.
I'm gonna be adding to those. I might be refreshing some items. I might be swapping out a linen or two within a color or something, just making
Mhm.
sure that my inventory is always kind of kept up.
Yeah.
So I like to stay within that 50 to 70% a profit
Okay.
margin. And remember, we're talking dollars because
Yes.
I'm renting something out, right? So I might be
Yeah.
renting my flower balls, like a big 80 centimeter flower ball, rents
Yeah.
for around $45, right?
Yeah.
They're renting 10 of them because they got 10 tables or whatever. So we're
Yeah.
looking at what's that, $450
Yeah.
for them. I've already paid for them, but
Yes.
what I got them custom made. So when I got
Okay.
them custom made, I might have paid $200-300 per ball
Yeah.
when I first got them made. But now
Yeah.
I've used them over and over and over again, right? I rent
Mm.
them out, all of that. So now they can rent out at $45. But when I first acquired them, right, that rental rate may have been higher
W
because this was a brand new color that we acquired or things like
Yeah.
that. And there are ways that you can talk about that in that that's another reason that consultation process is important. I talk
Mhm.
about that in the consultation. Hey, I noticed that you want a chocolate brown. We don't carry chocolate brown at this time. We're happy to acquire it, but that rental rate's going to be a little bit higher because that'll be a new acquisition. Okay, can
Mhm.
you still give us a quote out for that? And people will say that. And we'll give them
Yeah.
a quote out. Or I'll say, we don't have chocolate brown, but we do have this mauve. We have a mauve and a cinnamon that
Mhm.
pairs well together. Would that be a good adjustment for you?
Love it.
Say, actually, nope, we're good with you acquiring that new inventory and charging us, a little bit more than the typical rental rate
Yeah.
versus this or whatever. But it's a part of the transparency of process. And then people want that customization. A lot of people come to me for the customization. So that's a no-brainer. Like, well, she can
Yes.
customize colors. So I'm going with her because I want chocolate brown and she's the only one who can do that. Everybody else just has
Yeah.
standard brown, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Question for you for managing your inventory. What it because some people, I think that that might be a little foreign for some people. Are you using a platform? Are you using Excel? How do you keep track of your inventory?
So currently I'm using Excel, but you're going to be
Mm.
so excited to hear because that is chaos sometimes, if I'm being
Yes.
honest. But I have admin. So
Okay.
admin days happen for me every single week that we're checking things. But
Mhm.
I'm having a system built right now, a custom system built.
Mhm.
But I don't know, can I offer some things that I looked at for on
Yes.
here that like
Like
for people?
Bookable? Have you looked
I
at Bookable?
Yeah, Bookable is one that I use right now, not
Mm.
necessarily to manage the inventory. We were playing around with it on the back end as our
Mm.
rental site.
Mm.
So it's a little bit of inventory management, but more so this outside rental period. But it doesn't Bookable does it for what I want. One of my friends uses it for her site, but for what I want, you still have to do quite a bit of back end on Bookable after somebody books your items. And so
Okay.
we are creating custom systems. So has been our current platform in terms of externally if somebody wants to rent things, but
Mhm.
we really manage incoming inventory, phased out inventory, things like that. We manage on a spreadsheet as well.
Mhm.
But another one that I've seen a lot of people use, and I looked into them, Triple Seat has an offering.
Oh, now they do? Because I always thought
Yeah,
of, like, restaurant, like, different things, not just Triple C for
Yep.
that.
So Triple C it's a custom build out that you have to do, but they have a custom build out where you
Okay.
can do things like that. And then the other one is I'm drawing a blank. I might have to come back to it, but I just had a consultation with them about a month ago. But you can only create a wish list. So for those of you who want to
Oh.
manage inventory and allow people to create a wish list, and then they can hop on a call and you can verify their wish list items are available and then
Mhm.
rent them out. It'll come to me before we get off this call, but that's another one. I actually, while I'm on the computer while we're talking, I'm gonna look it up because it's actually a really good platform. And before I went the custom route, it was the one I was going to use.
Mm.
Good Shuffle. That's what it's called. Have you heard of
Good
Good
sh
Shuffle?
No, I have not heard of Good Shuffle.
So yeah, Good Shuffle is a platform that's actually designed for like event rental companies
Uh-huh,
where you can load all your inventory and then people can create a wish list of like
uh,
they want to rent this item and this item. And then it sends a wish list over and then you can do some back end booking. So it takes more
yeah,
work on the back end.
yeah,
And so that was the one I was actually going to go with them. But
uh-huh,
then I came across someone who could build me a
oh,
custom site that where
okay,
now that we have a warehouse and everything, we're
okay,
gonna have a whole process. 'Cause that's another thing a lot of people don't think about. When you begin to rent your items out as well,
uh,
because that's another stream of income, right? Even if
mhm,
you don't have an event, could you? Because it's not making money if it's sitting on the shelf,
yeah,
but being conscious of, like, do you have a process for your team or yourself to check out your items for events that you have coming up so
yeah,
that then the website doesn't show them available for those dates? And
yeah,
that was something that I really had to think through because I was just like, "Oh, yeah, we can put everything on the site." And then I was like, "Wait, what if I have an event coming up? I need to make sure that that stuff is
mhm,
reserved." So just making sure that you have processes for those things as well, but
yeah.
those were just a couple of ones that I looked into.
I love that. And because inventory is so important. Like honestly, I feel like inventory is important not only for party or decor rentals or venues. I feel like every part of the event industry needs to have inventory. Because even if you're a
Mhm.
caterer, are you keeping track of your how many shafer dishes you have, how many serving utensils you have, plates, spoon, all that stuff, regardless if it's disposable or not disposable, understanding how many tablecloths you have. Like if you don't take the time to do that, the worst time you want to realize it is when you are actually going to get ready for an event. Like I have a video that's coming out on YouTube for Green Eyed Ambition, and I'm talking about inventory because inventory is something that ultimately helps you of understanding like what is moving because this is the perfect time. I would say like between Christmas and January 1st for you to actually if you're using a system, but if we're not using a system, you're not going to necessarily know this. Like what moves the most? What is getting booked the most? Like
Mhm.
because you don't want it to be that you're adding more of something that people aren't actually requesting when you can actually be getting more of a specific item that people do want. And like I always say to people, like data takes your emotions out of it. I operate in that space a lot. I'm probably more of the administrative side of events. Like I love doing that more than the
Mhm.
execution. But because when you know the numbers, it tells you how to run your event business. Like it helps you of
Yeah.
understanding like what's going on compared to, oh, I saw this person had all this on their Instagram and that's what people are booking, but are your clients booking it?
There
So
it is. Because why did you buy red chairs? So how many red events do you have? You
and
bought
you're
you bought 100 red chairs? Okay. Okay.
But if we don't look at the numbers, we don't know that, and you don't want your inventory, being impacted because we are avoiding it. The
Yeah.
biggest thing I want for people to hear is, like, don't get so wrapped up in the creative. Like, it doesn't matter if you have a venue, it doesn't matter if you're doing, party decor, it doesn't matter if you're a planner. Like, look at your numbers because the best thing is that the sooner you do that, the easier it is that's going to make it for you to make the decisions that are going to help with impacting your business in the right way. But when we avoid it, I don't know if we think it's just going to disappear. In reality, it just compounds and it just elongates your long suffering
Yep.
inside of you having the type of business you want. So, one of the things I thought would be really great for us to talk about, and this is what drew me to your TikTok, was the fact that you're like, it's going to be me turning away some clients. And many event pros have this fear of losing clients if they raise their prices. Did you actually overcome this fear? And if someone's listening that is scared of losing inquiries, what would you recommend for them?
So I overcame the fear because I can't afford burnout. And then
Uh-huh.
I recognized like being too busy doesn't make the quality of work better. I want quality work every single time. I want clients that I want to work with. Like I work hard enough that I can work with who I want to. And
Uh-huh.
so once I came to that realization, when I say I, the business, right? Like
Yeah.
I am still physically, very physically present in my business. So I think about that this is labor. This
Mhm.
is extensive work that I do, a lot of brain power, a lot of physical labor. What
Mhm.
kinds of spaces do I and my business want to be in?
Yeah.
Because I'm able to make those decisions,
Uh-huh.
that really helped me. with being able to say no. Also recognizing, like I said, the numbers, like you, even what you said, the numbers, if it doesn't make sense to me, I'm not doing it. So
Mm,
recognizing that somebody wants a Lion King themed baby shower and their budget is $1,500. When am I going to do that again? I
mm-mm,
cannot, how can I give you that, all that custom stuff that you want your baby's name on everything. You want Simba, Pumbaa, Timon, and Mufasa. You want all the characters. Then you want Nala at the door as well. You
yeah.
want custom balloons, right? You want all these custom things for $1,500. And sometimes that's too much, right? Their budget isn't even that.
Yeah.
But you want this custom thing. And then I realized, okay, if I do all of those things custom, I make no money at all. The
Yeah.
business makes no money. And then how do I pay people? How do I travel to you to do that thing, set up, break down all these things? So for
Mhm.
me, it was that realization when I had enough events where I was like, okay, your budgets are just way too low for what you're asking for.
Mm.
I had started a series called Before You Blame the Decorator. And so I
Mm.
started to just kind of through things. And so that's some of the TikTok videos and things that I put out are these experiences and these talking points of me just sharing things that you should possibly things you might not know about this industry. And
Yeah.
as a professional in the industry, it's partly my job to tell you. So I started to have those conversations and put those things out. And I realized like people were responding to that of like, I really didn't know that. Oh
Mm.
my goodness, I did that to somebody. Oops. Actually, now glad you said that. I need to DIY my stuff, right?
Yes.
Like people just really recognizing and understanding. And when I saw that it was just conversation in the industry was missing.
Yes.
I said, I'm going to educate people as much as I can with respect, with honor and integrity. And I'm going to tell people no. If after
Mhm.
I've told you and explained to you why this is the way it is, if it
Yeah.
does not fit for us, then it's a no. And I got really comfortable with that.
Yeah.
And then I realized I'm still just as busy, but I'm
Mhm.
busy with the ideal client, the target
Yes.
client. And then my advice to folks who are afraid to lose clients and things like that, if you're afraid to lose clients, then how do I want to say this? I encourage you to adjust strategy.
Mhm.
And what I mean by that is the clients who are meant for you, who really desire and want to stick with you as their designer, your price isn't going to be their priority, right?
Mhm.
Your timeline is going to be their priority. Your skill set, right? You become the winning point for them. It's like now you want to be reasonable, right? I would never tell anybody, don't be not lose integrity in your pricing and say, well, I'm gonna charge this because I'm worth like this is what I'm worth, period. No, nothing else. You
Yeah.
should charge what you're worth, but recognize, right? Industry, location, what you offer, those kinds of things. But I
Mhm.
would say adjust your strategy if you think you're going to lose clients. When you start to say no, I can almost guarantee you're going to start gaining more of the right clients
Yes.
opposed to just losing clients.
Yeah, and having clarity on what kind of clients you actually want to work with. And then also, too, once you have that clarity, it actually allows for you to market to them a lot better. Because
Yes.
years ago, I had a lot of caterers that were following me on Instagram. And I would see people complaining about their prices, like these backhanded comments that's their content. And I'm like, your person doesn't know what that is expensive for. I mean, like, you're doing post about lobster mac and cheese, bro. Like, that's not equating to the everyday person that you're going to be
Yep.
$200 ahead. Like, it comes down to when we're marketing to people, we have to know, like, if I'm trying to attract this luxury client, the kind of things that they're going to be looking for are going to be a lot different than someone that might be trying to get a budget
Yeah.
one. So, like, that helps with, like, really marketing to attract the type of people that you want. And the thing about business is you can work with who you want to work with. I feel that sometimes there can be, you hear this comment of like, it's almost like a feast and famine, like, or this lack mindset that, so like, oh, I don't want to turn away people because it'll dry, so it perpetuates, like, I don't wanna lose, like, you don't wanna lose people, you don't wanna lose people, but the thing is that did you really even want them?
That's the thing. I just talked about this at a women's business event the other
Mm,
week
mhm.
of how I shared, just in full transparency, some of you are tired and burned out because you keep saying no. I mean, keep saying yes when you should be saying no. And the
Yes.
reason that you're saying no is because you don't want somebody else to have it. I mean, the reason
Mm,
that you said yes
yeah.
is because you didn't want somebody to have it. And it's it's insane to me of like, you think you know somebody down the road who has the capacity, who wants that kind of they want to do custom baby showers. You
Mm,
said 3 weeks ago you don't want to do custom baby showers, they're not worth it. You know
yeah.
somebody who could execute well, and instead of letting them have it, you did it. And now you got an attitude again. When you could have just referred sis down the street who loves doing custom baby showers.
Because I don't think that people realize that that can still be able to bring them money because they're not
That's
thinking
it.
like, how do I have a circle of influence of people that do the things that I just don't like doing? Like, I don't
There it is.
necessarily openly talk about the type of events I do just because most people they'll start talking to me about like I have no desire to do anything in the social realm of it. And if I did a big production, I don't wanna organize it, like, because I would say I've been a little bit, prone to a little bit less strenuous, stuff, but when people reach out, which they do, then what I then do instead of me doing something I don't want to do. When I first started doing events, I did a baby shower and something else, and I left, I will never I was like, "I will never do this again." I was like, "Oh, no." I rather a corporate
And
client saying, "This is what I gotta spend, let's make it happen," than someone sending me a whole bunch of Pinterest pens with a floral wall that they think is gonna cost me and this is back when the origami floral walls were, like, big when I and I'm like, "Do you
yeah.
know how much this paper cost in the amount of hours? This is not $100." I'm like, $100 is the low end of the paper, like, not the hours to do
Literally.
I'm just like, "No, I'm not doing all that." So I think that
Uh-huh.
there's
People
power
don't know.
and they don't know that and so I didn't take offense to it. I was like, "But, oh, no, I can't." Like, I don't care about that to that extent. And the thing about it is, like,
Yeah.
if you're hearing this, anyone is listening, build something that you love. Like, it doesn't like, I think you have to build stuff that will to make money and it's okay to make money. Because sometimes when we're talking about pricing, like, there's this attachment to struggle. It's okay for you to make money in your business because that's how you keep your
Please make
business
money.
open. Yes.
Yeah, businesses make money.
Yeah.
That's just it. Everything else should remain a hobby. If the goal is not money, then
Mhm.
it's okay to have hobbies. And I think that
Yeah.
we've gotten away from that. Like people feel like they
Yes.
can't just enjoy things anymore. But
True.
a business should be profitable. But
Mhm.
you can also enjoy that too. So if you're going to attach the word business to this enjoyment, then you need to also attach profit. I mean, yeah, profit to it. But if
Yeah.
you're going to just enjoy something, it's okay for that to be your hobby.
1,000%. 1,000%. I
Mhm.
love that. So what's something you wish every event business owner would understand about building a business that they can sustain and not one that drains them?
That everybody's business can look a little different in terms of process, right? Like
Mhm.
how it operates. Our bottom lines should be, right, some of the same things: integrity, money, right? Like
Mhm.
treating people well, those kinds of things. But how your business runs it doesn't have to run the same way everybody else's runs. It just needs to make sense for your target market, right?
Yeah.
Like make a business that makes sense for your target market
Mhm.
and not don't build a business. The other thing I would say a lot of us create businesses, right, out of problems or passions of our own, but we're
Mm.
not our client technically.
A thousand
So
percent.
recognizing, yeah. So I think the other thing I wish all event planners and stuff, or just people in the event industry knew and understood too, that you need to be solving a problem. You need to be being the solution for your customer, not
Mhm.
for you.
Mhm.
The solution for your
Uh,
customer.
a
Yeah.
and that would save you so much time. Like, and here's the thing is
Mhm.
regardless of what's going on, they're still gonna have a problem. It's just gonna look different. Like
Different. Yep.
this whole week, I'm spending time rethinking what we're gonna do for Q1, not from a space of lack, from a space of like, my client still has a problem. What is their problem and how is it now different? And how do the services we provide a solution? And how am I also innovative? Because I think that that's something really important too, is that there's a lot of space for creativity right now. But if we're just being creative to just be creative without having the idea, like your client like, if it's not gonna be something that your warm and hot market would actually go for, it's okay to start something new, but understand, like, that's a whole new client. That's not
Yes.
that
Yes.
may not be what you want you want either, so just take the time to think about it.
Yes. Yes. And do your market research. Like,
Mhm.
it takes nothing from you to research a little bit before you try any and everything. But that is a part of business, right? You should be
Yeah.
trying new things.
Yeah.
And then if something doesn't, like, if you really hate something, let it go. Like,
Yeah.
don't do that thing. That's another reason having a network is so important.
No, I think it's super important for us to just take the time to like be present to our client. And so, like, from an actionable step for anyone that's listening, if you're not quite sure, ask past clients. And hopefully you build up rapport and relationship with those individuals to say, hey, I'm starting to get ready for 2026. Like honesty and transparency and humility gets you so much further in event planning or event industry and as a business owner than you assuming. If
Yeah.
you're not sure, reach out to people that have already paid you before and say, "Hey, I'm going into next year. What are some things that if we would have had it, you would have liked? Or if you were to host this upcoming year, what would you want to see?" Like ask. And some of the stuff might sound stupid, but some of it actually might be like, I'd never even thought about that. Or it might at least give you some inspiration to lead you in the direction that you're wanting to go. But ask
Yeah.
questions to be able to find out more about what are the needs of the people you serve.
They should be who you talk to often. You
Yes.
should be talking to your client often.
Very true. So before we wrap up, what's one question pros should ask themselves before setting any price in their business?
I would probably say they should ask themselves, does this align with my business?
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, I know that sounds kind of vague and kind of far-fetched, but sometimes it just makes me think about the yes again, like how people are
Mm,
so willing to say yes to stuff, and then you gonna charge for it or whatever, and it's like you don't do that. Like, let somebody else do that.
yes.
No, seriously, before they set any pro sets a price, I think the question they should ask is what how much should this be worth
Mm,
to the client? Like, how much should
yes.
this be worth to the client? Might be a very good question because if this is a hot item, right? Like something that like pillars, for example. Like if
Hmm.
you're in the wedding industry, like we use plimps and pillars through it. Like that's our holy grail in an
Yeah.
aisleway, on a stage, on a reception, at a sweetheart table. That's your holy grail. You're gonna have some pillars, right?
Yeah.
So I would set that price based on, right, the value to the
Mm,
customer. Like, not don't just pull a price out of
thin
anywhere.
air.
It's like, "Oh, this is a valuable piece that
Mm,
should be priced at X amount of dollars," right? Or,
yeah.
and then I think also too, retire your inventory. You should
Mm.
be pricing some things out of inventory, meaning if that stuff is chipped, why are you still using that? And charging people full price, like, you didn't even try to paint it or like, I have been to events like, "Oh, this is broken," and they put it right here on this table, but okay. I hope I kinda answered the question. That was kinda
Yes, you
hard for me to
did. You
like,
did, but
hey, yeah.
it's true. So
Yeah,
this
yeah.
has been a really great conversation. So for people that want to connect with you, what's the best way to connect with you?
So I would say for just like communication and like connecting it like in general, I would say my Instagram is a great place to just follow me. I do
Mm,
respond to DMs for those that just are like, hey, let's be in community. And my page is just Care Monique for my decor, and then my rental hall is All In Event Space. So it's spelt like Allen. My last name is Allen, so it's ALEN Event Space. That's on all of our social media platforms. And then
mhm.
for those who are looking to do any kind of business with me, caremonique.com has links to all of my businesses, my coaching, my decor business, my rental hall. I also am a grief advocate. So I have some tools around grief, and I have a grief podcast. So just anybody who really wants to connect business wise, caremonique.com is a great place for you to land.
Perfect. Thank you so very much for being a yes to today's conversation.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was an honor.
Wow, this was such an amazing conversation. We've all fallen victim to pricing based on fear and just people pleasing at some point until we realize that that just will not work when we are now CEOs and bosses of our business. I hope that the information that you learned today is going to help you with being able to get to the next level inside of your business, because you truly deserve a business that pays you and also rewards you on the creative side. So if this episode has hit home for you, take a moment and comment below and let me know what's one of the action items that we discussed that you're going to start implementing into your business today. So it's time to start normalizing conversations about numbers and start talking about the numbers that actually matter inside of our business. As always, I'm here to see you win and into the next episode.